Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 6 English lesson on dashes. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username, as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English language arts, grade 6, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of dashes. All right. So our chapter is dashes. Our subject is English language arts. Grade 6. And the lessons that we're going to be focusing on today is to use dashes. All right. So when it comes to dashes, right? A dash, it often represents a pause within a sentence. So yes, usually we'll have a comma as a pause, right? But also dashes, they often represent a pause within a sentence. So once again, we'll say that a dash, right, or dashes, it represents a pause within a sentence. Remember, we cannot just like, for example, read or write something without any forms of punctuations. And A dash is also a form of a punctuation. It's not just your normal commas and periods and exclamation marks, question marks, right? A dash is also a punctuation mark. It also represents a pause. All right. And the dash, it can show a clear break, right? A dash can show a clear break or set off extra content from the rest of the sentence. So you will basically then see the other, let's say, for example, the other, it will basically set off or show the separation between one part of a sentence and another part of a sentence, right? But yet it is one sentence. So a dash can show a clear break. Remember a pause. We are just pausing and now we have our dash, right? So it shows a clear break or set off extra content from the rest of the sentence, such as an aside, an explanation, or an additional details. So sometimes we might have our, for example, our sentence, but now we'll have a dash, right, which shows a pause. And then after that pause, we will either maybe show the explanation of the person or other additional details or just maybe other information that was set aside or that we set on the side. And I know usually we do not use dashes, right? Because we'll usually or would prefer to use either a comma. And the only time we mainly see dashes is when we are either reading books or stories or an article. But at least now you know that it represents a pause in a sentence and that it can show a clear break, right, from the rest of the sentence, or it can set off extra content from the rest of the sentence. Words that we have either put aside or we are saying on the side, an extra explanation or additional information that we are giving about whatever that we're discussing within that sentence. All right, and if we look at an example, right, it says, according to legend, according to legend, King Midas ultimately died of starvation. So according to legend, King Midas ultimately died of starvation. All because of his wish that everything he touched should turn to gold. So which means that this break that we see over here, or this, let's say, the dash that we see over there, it shows a clear break between that two. It's not even two sentences. It's basically one sentence, but it just shows a clear break from the rest of that sentence. Because here we already know that King Midas, he died of starvation. And now they're giving us an explanation as to why he died of starvation, right? So instead of just saying that King Midas died of starvation, full stop, they are now giving us an explanation or additional information as to why King Midas died of starvation. So he died of starvation all because of the wish that everything he touched turned to gold, or should turn to gold. Which means that he probably thought that if he were to eat anything, right, he'd want that to turn to gold. And of course, touching food is probably going to turn to gold in his mind. So unfortunately, he died of starvation. And like we say, our dash over here, it just shows a clear break between the one part of the sentence and the other part of the sentence, which is the explanation part. All right, if we look at another example, it says Warren strives to control every aspect of his life. But life, surprise, surprise, doesn't always accommodate his wishes. Right? And here we have two dashes. Here we have two dashes. And if we look at the first words, right, after the first dashes, for example, surprise, surprise, we don't even need to add that word. These are words that we don't even need to add, right? And that is why those are just words that are set off, right? It's words that is basically just on the side. You don't actually need to put it there, but it adds more interest to the story. So we say Warren strives to control every aspect of his life, but life, surprise, surprise, doesn't always accommodate his wishes. So the first words, which is surprise, surprise, the dash sit off and aside from the rest of the sentence. Then the words thereafter, it says doesn't always accommodate his wishes. Meaning that he strives to control every aspect of his life. But unfortunately, when it comes to life, right? Remember, life does not always accommodate our wishes. Today, something good might happen. Tomorrow, something good might not happen. For a couple of years, things might be happening in our life. We might be striving. Then, boom, something happens, right? And life takes a turn. All right. So those are dashes. There we have two examples of dashes where it either shows a clear break between that sentence Or it is dashes that is set aside from, or that's words that is basically set aside, and it also shows a clear break between, let's say, words that brings about more interest within a story or within a text. So once again, a dash, right? It often represents a pause in a sentence. And a dash within a sentence can either show a clear break or set off extra content from the rest of the sentence, right? After the dash, they can either have an explanation that they are still showing, or additional information or additional details of whatever that you are talking about or discussing, right? Or just anything from this on the side. It's like saying surprise, surprise, right? We don't need to add that, but in order to show interest or to make the sentence or the story more interesting or to show emphasis, we can just add those words, right? All right, so now we're going to aplusstudents.ca and we are going to do some more of our tutorial lessons as well as our test. All right, let's go to aplusstudents.ca. We said our chapter is dashes, and the lesson that we are focusing on is to use dashes. So we're going to use dashes, all right? So they're going to either tell us to add one dash or to add two dashes. And once again, before we continue, we see the dash, it often represents a pause within a sentence, and it can show a clear break or set off extra content from the rest of the sentence, such as an aside, an explanation, or additional details, right? And we made an example of two of our sentences already, right? And if we look at another sentence, it says, certain quakes, repeatedly washing one's hands, checking that the doors are locked, or counting things may actually be symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder. So certain quirks, yes, it's like a quirk, yeah, quirk. Certain quirks. It's almost like things within your character that you do, right? It's like a certain behavior, certain pattern that you constantly do. A quirk can also be, let's say, for example, let me think of something like habits that you do. So certain quirks, repeatedly washing one's hands, checking that the doors are locked, or counting things may actually be symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder, right? And if we look at that sentence, here we have two dashes. We have a dash over there and we have a dash over here, right? Which means that we are separating these words. Let me just remove that. So we are now separating this And I'm going to reread the sentence now, right? Because they're saying certain quirks. Now they are making mention of the quirks. So they're giving us examples of the certain quirks, like repeatedly washing your hands, checking that the doors are locked, or counting things, right? May actually be symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder. So that is basically just showing us that the dash is set off by additional information, right? It's additional details and it is separating it from the rest of the sentence, which means that this is additional information. We can read the whole sentence without this whole sentence over here. We can even read this whole sentence by saying certain quirks may actually be symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder without adding that additional information. And that is why you can see the dash over here, right? It sets off or it separates, pardon, whatever that's happening within our sentence, right? To either additional information that is added, additional sentences that is added, right? An explanation that is added. And in this case, that additional information, right, or the additional details, right, are basically giving us examples of what the certain quirks may be. Right? So certain quirks, which is like repeatedly washing the hands, checking that the doors are locked, or counting things, may actually be symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder. All right. And then we have another one, right? It says in a dialogue or a quoted text, right? So dialogue is a conversation between two or more people. That's a dialogue, right? Or a quoted text. A quoted text, right? A quote is showing us, and it is basically set off by quotation marks. And in a quote, a quote basically shows us what the person is directly saying. It's not you paraphrasing what I'm saying or saying it in your own words. No, you are directly saying what I said. So you're directly saying what I said. You are not paraphrasing. You are not saying whatever I said in your own words, right? Saying something directly that the next person says, you need to put it in quotation marks, and that is a quote, right? It's like saying, Lauren protested, right? It's not telling us what Lauren is saying, but no, you're mistaken. That is what Lauren said, right? And whatever Lauren said is in quotation marks. Directly what she said, right? And the dash over there that says, but no, you're mistaken. The dash over there shows that there is some form of interruption. Right? There's some form of interruption. And that is also, it says that in a dialogue or a quoted text, right, a dash can indicate maybe an interruption or it can indicate a mid sentence correction. So it's either correction or it can show an interruption, right? All right. So also with dashes, they're either going to tell us that we need to insert one dash, or we must insert two dashes, or we must identify the whatever the separation is, right? So in this case, it says we must insert one dash where needed. It says that tooth doesn't, ouch, yes, it does hurt, Brooke said as the dentist tapped on her lower left molar, right? So if we were to add the dash correctly, we will then add it over here within that quoted sentence. So then we will then basically rewrite it by saying that tooth doesn't, there we have our dash, ouch, and that shows an interruption. It shows an interruption. Yes, it does hurt, right? Because at first she's trying to say that this tooth doesn't hurt, but then she gets interrupted by the pain. And before she can even complete the sentence, she's like, that tooth doesn't, ouch. Yes, it does hurt. Right? All right. So we then added our dash, our one dash that showed interruption within that quoted sentence. We now need to insert two dashes where needed, right? All right, it says summarize the legendary storm chaser killed by a deadly tornado in 2013 was known for his daring missions to collect data from passing storms. All right, and if we were to add two dashes, right, where needed, then it means that we're going to have to rewrite this whole sentence now. So we will then firstly separate it by saying, I don't know if the person's name is Tim Samaras or just Samaras. Let me just double check. All right. So the person's name is Tim Samaras. So then we can say there, Tim Samaras and then we add our dash because now we are specifically talking about Tim Samaras. Now they're going to explain who Tim Samaras is. This is not extra or added information. They are saying Tim Samaras, they're saying he's the legendary storm chaser. So he was basically killed by a deadly tornado in 2013. Dash. And was known for his daring missions to collect data from passing storms. Right? Which means that here we have two dashes, right? We show two forms of pauses. Tim Samaras, right? Which means that we are talking specifically about him, right? Now they're telling us more about him. They're giving us extra or additional information about him. It says that he was the legendary storm chaser killed by a deadly tornado in 2013, which means that if you knew who he was or you Googled him, then we don't need to put the added information about the legendary storm chaser that was killed by a deadly tornado in 2013, right? And he was known for his daring missions to collect data from passing storms, right? So that two pause, that two dashes, right? It shows pauses and it is set off by extra explanations that is added to to that sentence, right? So that is basically how we add or identify dashes within a sentence. Where are we now? All right. Oh, I didn't see this one. It says insert one dash where needed. It says if you ever visited Shanghai, to be sure, okay, before like if you ever visit Shanghai, be sure to sample some of the street's food. Fried dumplings are extremely popular. So if you ever visited Shanghai, be sure to sample some of the street food. Fried dumplings are extremely popular, right? Which means that if we were to add one dash, then we will separate, yeah, we will separate it there. So if we rewrite that whole sentence, it says, if you ever visit Shanghai, I'm not sure if it's Shanghai or Shanghai, be sure to sample some of the street food dash fried dumplings are extremely popular, right? So, which means that if we look at the sentence, it says, if you ever visit Shanghai, be sure to sample some of the street food, right? But now additional information is given to us. What type of food? Yeah, they're specifically telling us that fried dumplings are extremely popular, right? So they're telling us that if you go and visit Shanghai, be sure to sample some of the street food. We could have ended our sentence just there, but now they're specifically telling us that fried dumplings are extremely popular. They are not telling us or they're giving us extra information or additional information, right? About the type of foods that we can or we maybe should sample because of its popularity, right? All right, so now we're going to our test, right? Where we are going to use dashes. And once again, before we go to our test, right, it says a dash, it often represents a pause within a sentence and it can show a clear break or set of extra content from the rest of the sentence. Maybe words we can just put aside, an explanation and additional details, right? So now we're going to begin our test. And they're saying that we must insert one dash where needed, only one dash where needed. All right. Is it option one or option two? Option one says Miss Gregory studied both business and fine arts in college, a combination that makes sense to those who know her as the owner of a highly successful art supply store. Or is it option two that says Miss Gregory studied both business and fine arts in college, a combination that makes sense to those who know her as the owner of a highly successful art supply store, right? So, which means that if we were to choose the correct sentence with one dash, then we will choose the first option. Because here they're telling us that she studied business and fine arts in college. But now they're telling us more, right? Her studying business and fine arts, she's basically a business owner, right? And she owns a highly successful art supply store. So that is where both her business and fine arts come in. So we choose option one. All right, so we need to once again choose one dash or insert one dash where needed. It says, I plan to climb the highest peaks on all 7 continents in, yes, in 6 months. The climber told the news reporter over the phone. Or is it the second option, which says, I plan to climb the highest peaks on all 7 continents in, yes, in 6 months? The climber told the reporter over the phone. Option one or option two? That is correct. Which one is correct? Where the dash is correctly added. All right, so if we choose the correct one, right? Remember we said that when there's either a quotation, right, or quoted sentence, in usually the dash so shows some form of interruption, right? Which means that we will go with option one, which says that I plan to climb the highest peaks on all 7 continents in, yes, in 6 months. So it's like basically pausing and correcting, like yes, like interrupting and saying in the 6 months you'll be climbing the 7 continents, right? So we'll choose option one. We need to insert 2 dashes where needed, right? Guys, once again, the dashes, it separates, firstly shows a pause. It's either showing additional information, additional explanations, right? Or just words that were supposed to be put aside. Some of the words we don't even really need to add to it, right? But they have decided to add it. So we need to insert 2 dashes where needed. Is it option one? When cross-country skiers, legs aching and lungs burning cross the finish line of a race, they often collapse like rag dolls, right? And there we have our 2 dashes. Or is it option two that says when cross-country skiers, legs aching and lungs burning, cross the finish line of a race, they often collapse like rag dolls. All right, so we will then choose option two, where especially where the dashes are, because they're saying that the cross country skiers, right? You're skiing, If we were to remove that words legs aching and lungs burning, then we can just say when cross country skiers cross the finish line of a race, they often collapse like rag dolls. But now they're telling us why they often collapse like rag dolls is because their legs are aching and lungs are burning. So, which means that there is additional information that is given to us, right? All right, so we're going to be adding one dash, or we need to identify that one dash where needed. So insert the one dash where needed. It says option one, Mount Rainiers Liberty Ridge climbing route is known for its amazing views and technical difficulties, not to mention its long history of mountaineering accidents. Or is it option two, which is Mount Rainiers Liberty Ridge climbing route is known for its amazing views and technical difficulties, not to mention its long history of mountaineering accidents? We need to choose the correct option. Option one or option two, where the dash is correctly placed, or the dash is correctly added. All right, then if we were to choose the correct one, we'll choose option one. And the reason for us choosing option one is because it says Mount Rainiers Liberty Ridge climbing route is known for its amazing views, right? We love the views, but also there's technical difficulties, right? And now they're saying not to mention its long history of mountaineering accidents. So the technical difficulties, and now they're telling us that there is a long history of mountaineering accidents. Meaning it didn't just happen once, it happened more than once that there has been accidents on the mountain. And it's been coming on for years. Right? All right, let's choose one more. Let's do one more and then we are done with our lesson for today. All right, it says the painting is meant to pay tribute to women throughout society. I mean, throughout history, the painter explained. Or are we choosing the way, or are we choosing option two, which says the painting is meant to pay tribute to women throughout society? I mean, throughout history, the painter explained. Right? And this is a quoted sentence, which means that it shows some form of interruption. And if it shows some form of interruption, we'll go to option one. Because option one says, this painting is meant to contribute to women throughout society. Right? Remember, society is mainly your community, your surroundings, right? But now they're saying it's like this painter is interrupting him or herself. I assume it's a woman. And then they say, I mean, it is throughout history. So it's not just women of today's society, right? But it's throughout history. It's been years and years on end, before and to come, right? All right. So that is now the end of our lesson on dashes. And we said that we use dashes to show a pause within a sentence. And usually dashes, right, within a sentence, it is set off by, they'll either show an extra explanations, additional information that is given, right, or additional details. And you can remove those details, right? but it is additional details that is given to that sentence to make our sentence more clear, to give us more details based on who or what we are talking about. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on dashes and using dashes. Thank you very much for joining the class, and I really hope you're going to have a good day further. Goodbye.